With the last major update for Baldur's Gate 3 coming out this year, a lot of players, including myself, are either returning to BG3 to experience the latest update, or are going to be trying this game for the first time as it is now quote-unquote finally completed. While I have hundreds of hours in this game, back when I first started I was very confused. As somebody who doesn't have much of a background in both D&D and CRPGs in general, starting this game was incredibly overwhelming, and so I wanted to ease you in whether you're a new or a returning player so you can get to enjoying one of the greatest games of this generation right from the get-go. Starting with the first thing I wish I knew or understood, how actions, bonus actions, spell slots, and cantrips worked. So the way Baldur's Gate 3's combat works is that on every turn, you're supposed to maximize the use of your resources, and that's exactly what these things are. Resources. Actions, which is this circle icon on top of your hotbar, is your major resource, used for things like attacking, dashing, helping party members, using skills, and even casting spells. It's basically used for whatever major move you're going to do in your turn, and with the exception of later game builds, you typically only get one action, so you really want to make it count and plan ahead. Whether you want to use it for buffing or doing major damage, figuring out the best way to use your action is how you get good. And it's not always as simple as clicking on whichever skill does the highest damage. We'll talk more about this later. Another resource you have is bonus actions, which can be used either before or after performing an action move. Typically, these are the lower impact type abilities like smacking an enemy with the hilt of your sword to daze them, or jumping across the battlefield for better positioning. Spell slots are where it gets interesting. For non-D&D players, these are basically mana, used to cast spells and will be consumed alongside an action or a bonus action if used. Spell slots have their own levels, so for example, here you can find your level 1 spell slots available, your level 2s, and so on and so forth. And you can see in the description of the skill what level of spell slot they'll use. Casting the Paladin Smite, for example, will cost you a level 1 spell slot and an action, with the Smite counting as your major move for the turn. You can then cast Misty Step to reposition, which consumes a level 2 spell slot, but since Misty Step counts as a bonus action, you can use these two moves at the same turn. Sometimes you can also upcast certain skills for higher damage or larger effect, but it varies from skill to skill. The one thing you have to remember is that once a spell slot is consumed, it can only be regained upon doing a long rest, which is kind of the downside of playing mage classes, but long rests are very cheap in this game, so it doesn't really matter that much. The only exception is if you're playing a warlock, who can refresh their spell slots every short rest, or of course if you use items to replenish. I do remember being confused about cantrips though, since cantrips are also a type of spell. However, what's great about them is that they don't consume spell slots. This is basically a spellcaster's basic attack, except a lot more versatile since it's magic. Use it as much as you want for small scale encounters or if you run out of spell slots. Lastly, in Baldur's Gate 3, there are also class-specific resources like, for example, oath charges for paladins, divinities for clerics, or superiority dice for fighters. This might be confusing at first, but really they're just another version of spell slots for class-specific abilities. Number 2, learn about advantages and disadvantages. There's a very common question that a lot of newer BG3 players tend to ask, and that is, why the hell am I missing so much? During my first playthrough, which was back in release, I didn't really pay much attention to this part of the tutorial, and I was very confused about why I had such a low hit rate. For those still confused, it's because of the advantage/disadvantage mechanic. Whenever you make an attack roll, what you're really rolling against is an enemy's armor class or AC. Now, to consistently hit your shots and get your roll over the enemy's AC consistently, you either have to put yourself in an advantageous position or put your enemy at a disadvantage, and this is how you do it. An easy example of a way to gain advantage is to always take the high ground, especially for your spellcasters or long-range damage dealers. Having advantage means that instead of just rolling one die to determine whether you will hit and how much damage you will put out, you instead roll 2, and the game will use the higher result, so higher chance to hit and higher chance to crit. On the other hand, if your enemy is at a higher elevation, you're shooting at a disadvantage, which means you roll 2 dice and use a lower result, which is the cause of most of your misses. In order to maximize hit chance and damage in the game's combat, you want to stack as many disadvantages on your enemies while keeping your party members in advantageous positions. Some ways to do this are putting your melee members up close to your enemies to give them the threatened condition, knocking them prone through an ice spell, or throwing them off balance with a melee skill. Keep this in mind whenever you fight, and things should go more smoothly in the future. Number 3. Most things in the world are interactable and can be used in very creative ways. You can literally just drag stuff around the world like barrels and crates to create, for example, a makeshift barricade, steps to climb on, even block vents to prevent gas traps. Some people even keep stacks of boxes in their inventory to always have elevation advantage, which is kinda weird, but an advantage is an advantage. Baldur's Gate 3 is a game about creativity. You don't always have to fight head on, and that's the beauty of the game. You just kinda have to think outside of the box sometimes and stack bombs in a pouch to one-hit kill an overpowered enemy. The power is in your hands. Number 4. Talk to as many of the NPCs as you can. They can provide you with not only rewards and extra stories, but also alternate ways to solve encounters or even whole new questlines. I understand this can get a little bit overwhelming, especially at the start of the game. I remember back in my first playthrough, I was about 10 hours in and I still haven't left the grove in Act 1. But the thing is, Baldur's Gate 3 at its core is an exploration and discovery game. There's no quest markers to tell you where the interesting stuff might be, you just stumble upon them yourself. The best items in the game, some of the companions, and even whole character questlines are locked behind these conversations, and some of them you follow all the way to Act 3, which means that the decisions you make early on can have an effect 200 hours in. If you get tired, of course, feel free to go where you want, when you want, but just remember to not ignore these people if you want to see everything the game has to offer. Number 5. Don't miss your core companions. Since I mentioned companions earlier, here's a very noob mistake I made recording them. Make sure to at least not miss your core companions in Act 1. This really messed with me during my first playthrough. I completely missed Astarion before finding him at the end of Act 1, and his lines went from stranger to friendly and acting like he also saved everyone when he just got there, and it completely ruined my immersion. Don't do that for the story's sake. All of the core companions can be found around the crash site, so explore that place thoroughly. If you need help about where they might be, Shadowheart is right in front of you when you land, Astarion is to the west of the ship, Gale to the east, and Lae'zel north of Gale. Will can be found in the Grove, and following his questline will take you to Karlach as well.
This video is sponsored by Meccha Japan. Meccha Japan is an online store that sells products from major Japanese licenses such as Pokemon and your favorite anime franchises. And today they've sent us a package so we could showcase to you guys basically what they have in store. And so we're gonna start a little bit of an unboxing kind of segment, and let's see what they've got for us. Okay, for the first item, we have this beautiful Overlord Albedo figure, and we're gonna open it. Check this out. First item on the list, and it already looks super amazing. This is Albedo from Overlord, for those of you guys who doesn't or haven't seen the anime or who don't know the character. But yeah, just look at the quality of this figure. Can't really twist it very well with just one hand, but look at the quality on that figure. And now we're gonna open the second figure, the second item from the box, because we have 3 in total. I'm just gonna put this one right over here. The second item is actually Callie from Hololive EN. So I'm gonna open up this figure real quick. I'll set it up and then I'll showcase it to you guys as well. And here I've finally finished, after quite some time, I finished assembling the Callie Figma. So here you can see the figure in all of its glory. It's adjustable, so you can change like the faces, you can remove her veil, you can remove her weapon, you can add it back. I'm not gonna show you the rest of the other faces because it's quite hard to assemble, but yeah, here's an example of one of them, and you can get one for yourself at Meccha Japan as well. So now we're off to the third and last item from Meccha Japan, and I'm gonna do the unboxing for that very, very quickly. Boom. And here is the final item. This is a ranga from Tensei Slime. What do you call this? Like a hood cloak, perfect for basically not freezing your ass in the bedroom while you're gaming. So yeah, I'm not gonna wear it, but just so you can see. So yeah, again, if you guys are looking for rare items or very rare items that you can only get in Japan, go ahead and check out Meccha Japan. That's meccha-japan.com. And only for you guys, they are actually offering us a discount code. And this will basically get you $10 off of any order greater than $100 USD. So code is code Kaganath10, so Kaganath10, and this is only going to be available for the first 1,000 users. So if you want to get any of these items at a discounted price, go ahead and check out the description and the pinned comment section in the video. I'm gonna link their website there. I'm gonna add the code and you can get these items for yourself. Go ahead and follow Meccha Japan on X or Instagram to get the latest updates and information on all of your favorite products. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's get back to the video.
Number 6. Multi-classing is a thing. I actually didn't know this until my second playthrough, but without D&D knowledge, I didn't realize multi-classing existed in this game. Granted, it's not really recommended for beginners because the way it works is that BG3 only has 12 levels, and you basically sacrifice levels and give it to your other class. So by multi-classing, you're essentially locking yourself out of level 12 feats and skills in exchange for versatility. Whether you will be able to take advantage of that versatility as a beginner is quite questionable, but you are welcome to try, as you can always respec via withers or follow a build guide. I still haven't gotten to the point of really mastering this, but from what I saw, you can make some really disgustingly good damage builds by combining something like a Paladin Warlock or a Rogue Fighter for multi-nooks, but again, word of warning, multi-class at your own risk. Staying with a single class all the way through is more than enough to beat even the hardest fights in this game. Number 7. Master your hotkeys. This is one of the best ways to not only maximize your efficiency in the game, but also to have the smoothest experience traversing the world. Instead of clicking the jump button, for example, and then clicking on where you want to jump to, you can just press Z and then click to jump where you want. Very useful for places needing you to continuously jump or to easily move across the battlefield. Here are some of the hotkeys I often use in and out of combat. Z for jumping, V for shoving or pushing enemies down ledges, C to crouch, and X to throw. You can also shift plus C to group crouch, which is useful not only for sneaking, but also so your party won't step on recently perception check traps and explode themselves, which happens way more than you think. G groups and ungroups your party, which is perfect for scouting. And then shift space puts you in turn-based mode for better trap navigation and sneaking. There's also left alt to show lootable items in the world, which is an obsession of mine. I have to get everything. And then spacebar to loot all. The game doesn't really explain that one for some reason, but yeah, it's there. You can use the home key to center on your character, but personally that's too far on the keyboard, so I prefer the F1 key, which does the same thing and takes your camera to your party leader. F2, F3, and the F4 keys center your camera on your other party members instead. And then there's the T button, examine. You can actually examine everything in the game. Useful for seeing the value of items before stealing them, or examining enemies in the middle of combat to see their resistances and then planning accordingly. For newer players, you can also press examine on top of skills you already examined to get explanations for what certain conditions or text mean, which is very helpful for learning the game. You can also customize your hotbar and bind spells and abilities to custom hotkeys, but honestly I found that too much of a hassle and procrastinated it for 300 hours, but yeah, that's available too. Master your hotkeys and your gameplay experience will literally never be the same again. Number 8. How to manage your inventory. One big thing that you'll notice about 20 to 30 hours into the game is how much of a hassle it is to organize your inventory. And this is especially true if you play like I do, where I loot every single little thing just because that's how my brain is wired. Eventually, your inventory will look like a massive mess of scrolls and throwables, and it gets kinda hard to find what you need immediately unless you spend time to actually organize it. Enter the tab key. The tab key shows you the inventory of every single member of your party at the same time. This allows you to easily transfer items between companions even in the middle of combat. Another useful thing here is the search button at the top left, which is perfect whenever you find yourself needing that one scroll you know you have but just forgot who it ended up with. Another trick that I like doing, which isn't clearly stated in the tutorial of the game, is that you can actually send all camp supplies back to camp. And whenever you would long rest, the menu would automatically pick from everything you have in all inventories, including camp inventory. So carrying food with you on your travels is literally just wasting inventory weight. Send all of it to camp. And for your weapons, jewelries, armor, and other miscellaneous items that you're looking to sell once you're back in town, there's also the add to wear feature, which means that upon pickup or by right-clicking in your inventory, you can tag an item as sellables. And when you're talking to a merchant, you can just press the very convenient sell where button to sell everything, cleaning your inventory all in one go. Lastly, for the inventory section, I like having designated pouches or backpacks for specific types of items. Like for example, I have one for my scrolls, my consumables. I even have one for my common amulets and rings that I use a lot and then bound them into my hotbar. Not only does it make your inventory look clean for easy navigation, but it also makes these items convenient to use. Oh, and Control plus click to select multiple, Shift plus click to select rows. That's the last one. Number 9. Take long rest often. Long rest is when you go to camp and pass the day so you can recover not just health but also your spell slots. What most beginners do though is minimize the amount of long rest they take because long resting uses camp supplies. But here's the thing, camp supplies will never be a problem as long as you're picking up food in the world. By the end of my campaign, I had thousands worth of supplies left over and were just wasted, never to be used. Additionally, the reason for taking long rest is not just to replenish your resources, but also to progress your companion stories. Interactions between your companions happen during long rest and is especially crucial in Act 1 for some of the story progression to make sense. So don't skimp out on resting. It benefits both the gameplay and the story side of your campaign. Number 10. The game is a marathon, not a sprint. For your first playthrough, I recommend not worrying about immediately min-maxing your build or trying to see what secrets there are in the game while you literally just started. Again, Baldur's Gate 3's beauty is in the exploration and discovery. Of course, you can play the game however you want, but if you were to ask me, the best way to experience this game is to just see where your decisions lead you to, as there is almost always a new path unlocked when you aggro certain enemies, fail an ability check, or side with different people. Trying to see where the best items are, what decisions lead to the best outcomes, almost always spoils the fun of these types of games, so I urge you to do it minimally. Save scum and Google in moderation, and every playthrough you do will feel like a different game altogether. So I know these tips are mostly for beginner players, but in the next video, I'm looking to compile everything I learned in about 300 hours of playtime in this game. So if you have anything to share with both beginners, intermediate, and advanced players, please feel free to comment them down below as I'd love to add them onto the next one. Hit that like and subscribe button if you want to see more, and also thank you to our Patreon supporters for directly supporting the channel. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.